His grace went across the ocean of suffering, and obtained the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is that my conscience purified by the words emanating from the Lord's mouth, that I shine to the Lord's faith, thus belonging life. He opened my heart and eyes to fill my heart with depth of knowledge. He is my Lord, word after word. From him is that bring heavens, by him ignorance is destroyed. In freedom is this his character. How sweet the mouth is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and all the hearts of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us, and give us shade of those who speak. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada
Jai. Jai.
Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Ashwata Radhadesh Srimad Bhagavatam Saraswati Thakur Ki
Jai.
Anatta Bhakti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shri Thakur Ki Prem Se Bhagavad Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srimad Bhaktivedanta Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Navadip Mayapur Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Dwarka Dham Ki Gamgamai Ki Yamunamai Ki Bhakti Maharani Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan Shri Radhadesh Dham Ki Gaur Premanande Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Shyam Radha Kundiki Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dham ki jai. Radhe Mayapur Dham ki jai. Shri Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Distribution ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Prashadam Distribution ki jai. Radhadesh Yatra ki jai. Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai. All glories to the Son. All glories to the Son. All glories to the Son. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru. All glories to Shri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nastaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 18. King Yayati regains his youth. Text number 33 through 37. So I will read 33, 34, 35, and then we can chant responsibly 37. Yadum chaturvasum chaiva devayani vyajatyata druyum chanum chapurim cha sarnistava sapa parvani. Devayani gave birth to Yadu and Turvasu, and Sarnistu gave birth to Druyu, Anu, and Puru. Garvasambhavam asurya Bhartur Vikyaya Manini Devayani Pritur Geham Yayo Krodha Vimurchita. When the proud Devayani understood from outside sources that Sarmista was pregnant by her husband, she was frenzied with anger. Thus she departed for her father's house. Priyam anugata kami bacho bir upamantrayan na prasadayitam steke pada sambhahanadihi. King Yayati, who was very lusty, followed his wife, caught her, and tried to appease her by speaking pleasing words and massaging her feet, but he could not satisfy her by any means. Sukrastam aha kupita strika mandrita purusha tvam jara
visatam manda virupa karani rinam. Sukracharya was extremely angry. You untruthful fool, lusting after women. You have done a great wrong, he said. I therefore curse you to be attacked and disfigured by old age and invalidity. So text number 37, I'll chant and then we can chant responsibly. Is there a board? Yeah. Okay, first. Shriyayati ruvacha Adriptosmi adyakamanam Brahmandu hitarismate Vyatasyatam yatakamam Vayasayo vidhasyati. Question?
Shri Yayatiruvacha Ajitosmyadhyakamanam Brahmandu hitarismate Yatyasyatam yatakamam Vayasayo vidasyati.
Shriyayatiruvacha Atriptosmi adyakamanam Brahmandu hitarismate Vyatyasyatam yatakamam Vayasayo vidasyati.
Vaishnavi? King Yayati said, Adriptaha, unsatisfied, Asmi, I am, Adya, till now, Kamanam, to satisfy my lusty desires, Brahman, O learned Brahmana, Duhitari, in connection with the daughter, Sma, in the past, Te, your, Vyatyasyatam, just exchange, Yatakamam, as long as you are lusty, Vayasa, with youth, Yat abhidasyati, of one who agrees to exchange your old age for his youth. Translation. King Yayati said, O learned, worshipable Brahmana, I have not yet satisfied my lusty desires with your daughter. Sukracharya then replied, you may exchange your old age with someone who will agree to transfer his youth to you. Please repeat. King Yayati said,
King Yayati said,
O learned and worshipable Brahmana,
O learned and worshipable Brahmana,
I have not yet satisfied my lusty desires with your daughter.
I have not yet satisfied my lusty desires with your daughter.
Sukracharya then replied,
Sukracharya then replied,
You may exchange your old age
You may exchange your old age
with someone who will agree
with someone who will agree
to transfer his youth to you.
to transfer his youth to you.
Purport. When King Yayati said that he had not yet satisfied his lusty desires with Sukracharya's daughter, Sukracharya saw that it was against the interests of his own daughter for Yayati to continue in old age and invalidity, for certainly his lusty daughter would not be satisfied. Therefore, Sukracharya blessed his son-in-law by saying that he could exchange his old age for someone else's youth. He indicated that if Yayati's son would exchange his youth for Yayati's old age, Yayati could continue to enjoy sex with Devayani. Om Agyan Timaratasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksun Milatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Hayam Dadati Sapadantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyavishatarine Mukhakaroti Vachalam Pankolam Gayate Girim Yakripastamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vanchakapatarubhyascha Vipashintu Vairaja Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I really pray to all of you that you will excuse me for giving class. I tried to get out of it. We have two wonderful sannyasis here and so many senior godbrothers, so please excuse me for my impropriety. Raj, please try to get out of it.
We're very happy.
These are the real sannyasis of ISKCON who are so happy to allow an inferior to speak in front of them. I was thinking that this chapter is so colorful and playful that it would make such a great movie. You know, I was thinking that Hollywood, Bollywood, you know, all these, even Grimm's fairy tales, has nothing on the Srimad Bhagavatam, you know? So many examples of what not to do, what not to be, what not to say. There's a beautiful verse spoken by Sanatana Goswami that I wanted to begin with in glorification of his beloved Srimad Bhagavatam. Mad eka bandho mad sangim, mad guru man mahatana, man nistaraka mad bhagya, mad ananda namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. This is from Krishna Lila Stava by Sanatana Goswami. So, I really wanted to thank all of you. When I come here, I always feel so grateful to be here. Radhadesh is such a wonderful, magical place, and you have the most beautiful Radha Gopinath here. And I just feel like Radhadesh, perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. And so now I come, you know, it's beautiful to come to a place that when you haven't been there in a while and you see all the improvements and all the things that are coming up. So the painted hallways that are so bright and cheerful, the new windows that are coming in. And who's the new temple president? He's not here, no? He has some other services. But please tell him, can you?
He might be hearing you in the kitchen.
Okay, so roll up your sleeves, do the needful temple president. So wherever you are, maybe if he's somewhere, maybe some of you could tell him. I've heard since I've been here one day, and I've heard that the new temple president has really won the hearts of the devotees. And so I'm begging you to please stay here, give your youth, and and as much of your old age as possible to Radhadesh, and I will pray for you. So, so this is an interesting conversation we can have this morning. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text number 11 says that Balam balavatam chaham kama raga vivarjitam dharma viruta bhuteshu kamasmi. But it says in the very short purport, he says a strong man's strength should be used to protect the weak, and sex should be used religiously for creating good progeny. It's interesting when you think about it, Krishna has designed the system so perfectly that in order to propagate the human race and all other species on earth, he has created pleasure in sex for the propagation of the species. Otherwise, people might not bother, right? In China, they have a problem now. They had a one-child policy, and now they find that they don't have enough children. The population's becoming... so thoughtful. Who thinks of these things? Only Radhadesh. So they have a problem in China that now they don't have enough youth, they don't have enough people to take care of all the aging population. So they've changed the policy now. They want people to have 2 children instead of 1. And
3.
3? Okay, corrected. Okay. Maharaj spends a lot of time in China. So they want the people to have 3 children, but now people are kind of used to not having the botheration of children, and they don't really want to. So it's an interesting situation, right? So sex, what is sex? Sex is the pleasure of sex life. It's a little harsh to say the prison house of this world. Maybe it's nice to call it sort of a reform school. But if you think of this world as a reform school, so sex is what the kind of the golden bars, the gold-plated bars on this reform school of this world. It's a little harsh, but Srimad Bhagavatam likes to speak harshly. Sadhus like to speak harshly sometimes. You know, in the old American cowboy movies, they would have one guy kind of falls down, he's been shot or something, and his buddy's like slaps him, you know, wake up, they're coming, you gotta wake up. You know, so sometimes there has to be this little slap to lull us out of our daydreams, our lethargy, our complacency. So in the material world, anytime there's great pleasure, there's also the flip side of great pain. Whenever there's great power, there's great danger. When there's a knife, you can perform a surgery, a skilled person can cut out a cancer, but there's also the danger in the wrong hands. A knife can kill someone. Fire is dangerous. Position is dangerous. Prestige is dangerous. Money is dangerous. So we have to be cautious. And we see so much in the yoga world. I know you have a lot of yoga groups who come here. So many yogis in this world, they have their yogini consort. Certain yogis, you see, they'll always have their sannyasini with them. And you don't know, okay, what is their relationship? Is he a married sannyasi, or what's going on? But Prabhupada was very strict about these things. And he didn't tolerate such things. But sometimes we see that ISKCON has gone overboard. Sometimes women have become objectified. Maya Devi, the women are the enemy, they're Maya Devis, they're the enemy. But the real enemy, we learn from this beautiful bhakti philosophy, that the real enemy is within. I mean, other processes on the spiritual path don't allow grihastha life, but we have this blessing of grihastha life to help us to make gradual advancement. The varnashram is so beautifully designed that we can make gradual advancement. So the real enemy is within us. We have to look at the man in the mirror. We have to look at the woman in the mirror. Every time we point a finger, there's all these 3 fingers pointing back at me. So some people say that Srimad Bhagavatam is a misogynist literature, denigrating women. But I don't personally find that to be true. I find in Srimad Bhagavatam there are examples of what to do and what not to do. There are examples of materialistic men and materialistic women. In this chapter itself, we have Yayati, Sarmista, Devyani, Sukracharya, and we see so much pride. The Puritans had this old saying, pride cometh before a fall. So, and we can see even today in ISKCON, even now, I know certain people who are very brilliant, very talented, very educated, but their pride is bringing them down, even amongst our own God brothers and God sisters. So then in Srimad Bhagavatam, we also have great examples of pure devotees among the women, Kunti, Draupadi, Devahuti, and of course the penultimate examples of pure devotion, the Gopis of Vrindavan. So Srimad Bhagavatam is very fond of uplifting the small people, the humble people, and again bringing down the proud people, bringing down the arrogant people. So in this chapter, renunciation of material enjoyment is being discussed, and about how it's an important goal, or the goal of human life, to gradually come away from the material enjoyment. And again, varnashram being the gradual upliftment of the human society. So Srila Prabhupada in the beginning, he pushed very hard. He made a lot of sannyasis among very young and often unqualified people. He realized that he had a very short time to do what he had to do. And even in one of the purports in this chapter coming up, Prabhupada himself says, we often see young sannyasis fall down due to unresolved desires for material enjoyment. So this means when we're too much attached, and we have to examine our own hearts. Again, it's not about pointing the finger. It's about examining our own hearts when we're too attached to material sense gratification. 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita also says, Hrita Jnana, Kamaisthaiskar Hrita Jnana. It means our intelligence is stolen by illusion. So if we look at the story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this beautiful young sannyasi, came and fell into an ecstatic trance in front of Lord Jagannath, and then Sarvabhauma ordered that this young unknown sannyasi be brought to his home, and then they put something in front of his nose, and they could see that he was still alive, and gradually his associates came and they explained, and Sarvabhauma began to appreciate Chaitanya. And then he wanted to instruct Chaitanya. He was concerned that such a young sannyasi, so handsome, so young, how is he going to maintain these vows of sannyas? Of course, then later he realized who Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really was. So in the ISKCON society, we have a checkered past. Like in this chapter, there's checkered examples. So we have a checkered past. In ISKCON, there was a time when the sannyasis thought it would be a good idea to send all the ladies to New Zealand, get them as far away as possible. But then as the story goes, Srila Prabhupada, when they were discussing with him, he was holding a little box in his hand that had been made by one of the ladies, a little very sweet decorated box. And Prabhupada said, but they have so much devotion. He was appreciating the devotion of his women disciples. And then he wrote in a letter don't let the ladies in, don't let them, send them to New Zealand, don't let them chant japa in the temple, they should be at the back, they should go to another continent, maybe another planet. And then Srila Prabhupada wrote this beautiful letter where he said, if you are so agitated, you should go to the forest. Because our temples are in the cities, and in the cities there are so many women. So even today, we see in some places in ISKCON that the leaders don't like to preach to ladies because they say, oh, they'll come and they'll steal all our brahmacharis. This is a problem. But yes, Varnashram teaches this gradual process. It gives us the gift. In the bhakti path, we have the gift of grihastha life, which is not there in more impersonal traditions. So this gradual process. So now we have to go back in ISKCON. We have to go back in our own hearts, and we have to go back in our ISKCON society. And as Lord Chaitanya did in the story of the cleansing of the Gundicha Mandir, we have to go back and we have to find the finer and finer dust within our hearts and within our society and see where have the mistakes been and how can we correct these mistakes within ourselves and in our community. So sex is an impulse, right? And we can choose our response to any impulse. The great Viktor Frankl taught that we are able to choose our response to any impetus. We are response able. So the practices of Krishna consciousness quiet down the senses and help us to be able to all of these things, sadhana, sadhusanga, seva, sadachar, svadhyaya, study of Shastra, all these things help us to turn down the temperature, turn down the frenzy, and help us to be able to pause and take a deep breath and choose how we want to respond to any impulse or any stimulus. So King Yayati was unable to choose a proper response. So we see that in Krishna's dynasty, it's amazing. In Krishna's own dynasty, he has some unusual forefathers, you might say. Like maybe in your family, you also have some unusual forefathers and foremothers. Maybe they did some strange things. But the example is by making the right choices today in our own lives, we can overcome even these questionable, unusual characters who've come before us, who've set grooves and set sanskars in our family line and in our character, handed us down maybe improper sanskars. Many lessons to learn. There are lessons in this chapter about gratitude to the father. So Puru, one of the other sons of King Yayati, he agreed to take the youth, to give his youth in exchange for his father's old age. He felt that he had a great debt to his father. So another lesson in this chapter is religious and irreligious refusals to obey a father's requests. You know, all of us who've come to the Krishna consciousness movement have made those choices, right? Unless you're a second-generation devotee. Even a second-generation devotee, even our own kids, have to have their own conversion experience. They have to have their own realization that, wow, this is also mine. It's not just, my mama's and my papa's. It's mine. So, yeah, this lesson of religious and irreligious refusals to obey a father's request, to obey a mother's request. We've come to the Krishna consciousness movement, really in disobedience to our own parents for a higher purpose. So King Yadu refuses in text number 40. He refuses because he has a higher purpose. He realizes that he has to live out his youth, as we all do, and go naturally to old age. And he wants to bring on the appearance of Lord Krishna. There's an example in this chapter of other sons who are unaware, who refuse their father just because they're unaware of religious principles. But it's interesting, in the very last verse of the chapter, it says, Although Maharaj Yayati was the king of the entire world, and he engaged his mind and five senses in enjoying material possessions for 1,000 years, he was still unable to be satisfied. So this is what we learn in Srimad Bhagavatam, what we learn in the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, that no matter how much we engage in material sense gratification, we will remain unable to be satisfied. So the Grihastha ashram is meant for this gradual upliftment of our hearts. There are some very elevated souls in the Krishna consciousness movement who are able to take sannyas at a very young age and to maintain it. But those are extraordinary people, Haribol. And but for most of us, this Grihastha ashram is such a blessing. And I wanted to read you some very interesting instructions that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has given in his Harmonious magazine on relations. This is his title, Relations Between the Sexes, from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. We think of him as being the nice stick of brahmachari, so strict, so intense, but he had some very, what I would consider, egalitarian instructions about Grihastha ashram. I know even for some people in the Krishna consciousness movement, egalitarian is a bad word. But for me, it's a good word. And I find his instructions very egalitarian. So I wanted to read this a little bit to you because I think they're so beautiful. So I know it's hard to listen to reading, so if you can please try to open your ear holes, and I'll try to pause and not read too fast. Try to open your ear holes. Okay, so he says, the cardinal principle of Grihastha ashram is that no one may be the owner of any property or service of another. Everyone is only a servant whose activities are ever in the service of the Lord. Similarly, the sole object of everyone's service as the only master, only friend, only son, and only consort is Krishna. Interesting, huh? So the wife is not meant to be the slave of the husband. Wow, what a surprise. The husband is not meant to be the slave of the wife. What a surprise, right? Okay, here's a little more. He says, marrying and giving in marriage do not give rise to any rights of a master, either to the husband or to the wife. Men and women are joined in wedlock for the purpose of serving each other in the performance of the joint service of Krishna. The wife is not an object of enjoyment of the husband, nor vice versa. They do not marry for gratifying their sexual appetites. They marry for pleasing the Lord, not for pleasing themselves. Okay? Ready for the next? One more paragraph. They choose for their partners. So if you're looking for a wife, if you're looking for a husband, here's a criteria. They choose for their partners only such persons who serve God better than themselves. They offer themselves to be accepted by their partners for the favor of being allowed to share in their superior service of Hari. Neither the husband nor the wife should claim the services of his or her partner on their own account. Both of them are only to offer their services if and when their partner is pleased to permit them to share their service of Hari. None of them can force their partners to serve them. And here's a nice bit about Shri Radha Gopinath. This system of household discipline has its roots in the joint worship of the household deity by all members of the household. Jai Radha Gopinath. Right? Okay, last paragraph. The reason why the Guru does not ordinarily ask any person to enter the state of wedlock is that it is very rare to find anyone in this world who is willing to regard his or her wife or husband as worthy of his or her unconditional services. This is, however, exactly the only relationship between husband and wife that alone can be sanctioned by the Guru. Amazing, huh? Amazing instructions by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So, Yeah, there's a beautiful verse that's chanted. Yuvati nam yata yuni yunam cham yuvato yata. Mayo, I can't remember this. What was it? Mano me ranatam chaiva. Forget the last. But it's saying that just as the minds of young girls are naturally attracted to the minds of young boys, and just as the minds of young boys are naturally attracted to the minds of young girls, let my heart, O Krishna, let my mind become attracted to you. So ultimately, in Krishna consciousness, we're meant to be praying for the Supreme Kamadeva. This is in our Gayatri Mantra, right? The last line of our Gayatri Mantra. We're meant to be praying to the Supreme Kamadeva to steal our hearts. So that supreme chore, that supreme thief, to come and steal our hearts. So on that note, I wanted to end with 8 beautiful verses called the Chor Astakam. Okay? So this is the Chor Astakam. I offer my pranams to that foremost of thieves, who is famous in Vraja as the butter thief, and he who steals the gopis' clothes, and who for those who take shelter of him, he steals the sins which have accrued over many lifetimes. I offer my pranams to the foremost of thieves, who steals Srimati Radhika's heart, who steals the dark luster of a fresh rain cloud, and who steals all the sins and sufferings of those who take shelter of his feet. He turns his surrendered devotees into paupers and wandering homeless beggars. Aho! Such a fearsome thief has never been seen or heard of in all 3 worlds. Mere utterance of his name purges one of a mountain of sins. Such an astonishingly wonderful thief I have never seen or heard of anywhere. O thief! Having stolen my wealth, my honor, my senses, my life, and my everything, where can you run to? I have caught you with the rope of my devotion. You cut the terrible noose of Yamaraj. You sever the dreadful noose of material existence, and you slash everyone's material bondage, but you are unable to cut the knot fastened by your own loving devotees. O stealer of my everything, O thief, today I have imprisoned you in the miserable prison house of my heart, which is very fearful due to the terrible darkness of my ignorance. And there for a very long time you will remain receiving appropriate punishment for your crimes of thievery. O Krishna, thief of my everything, the noose of my devotion remaining forever tight, you will continue to reside in the prison house of my heart, because I will not release you for millions of eons. Hare Krishna. So thank you all so very much. So what do you think? We have some time for discussion. What do you think about prison houses? What do you think about sex attraction? What do you think about grihastha life? Do you want to reflect back anything you heard, or raise any thoughts or discussion or question? Prison houses, reform schools, thieves, sex desire, stolen intelligence. In one sense, we want our intelligence to be stolen, right? By Krishna, but not by material desire. Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you for your illuminating discussion. You mentioned the subject of dharmic and adharmic obedience, and then you brought this into mentioning children of grihastas, and I thought it was interesting. You said each child of devotees must have, if I got it right, must have their own conversion experience. And it got me wondering, thinking of our younger generation, whether they would all say, yes, I had a conversion experience. It happened on Tuesday, the 23rd of July, 19 something,
I had a come to
20-something.
Jesus moment.
or whether there are some who are fully enthusiastic, seeing themselves as Krishna bhaktas, but it was as we also hear so much, and you mentioned a couple of times, gradual process, or just a feeling of, well, what else is there to do? This is life. This is how I always lived. I can't imagine anything else.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I guess to really refine the point, I'm sure just as in ISKCON we have many young sannyasis who have not fallen down, who are able to keep their vows, like the two who are visiting Radhadesh today. And many others have fallen down. So in the same way, I'm sure there probably are young people who really are raised in Krishna consciousness, dancing and chanting and taking prasadam and just can't imagine any other life. There are little Prahlad Maharajas in the ISKCON movement, I was in one temple in Delhi, and one of the teachers brought these kids up, and they were all chanting whole chapters of Bhagavad Gita, little kids this big, whole chapters of Bhagavad Gita. One little boy came, and he chanted all the Sanskrit prayers of Rukmini Devi from Srimad Bhagavatam to me. It's astounding, But yeah, how deeply will it go into their hearts? And I have a lot of mental baggage, I guess, from old years of ISKCON. Even now, I have friends in Delhi and other places who've pushed their kids too hard. And, my child is going to be just like Prahlad Maharaj, and he's going to chant 16 rounds every day, and he's going to get initiated when he's 12 or 10 or 8. And then sometimes it backfires. Very often it backfires. And I know one little boy in Delhi, a family that's very close to me. The first time I met them, he was worshipping Lord Jagannath and dressing them and chanting 16 rounds. And then the next time I went to see them a year later, all he wants to do is play cricket, which is fine. Sports are really important for boys, and sometimes girls also. So how deeply is it going to go into their heart? That's an individual thing. How gradual does it have to be for me or for you? Ultimately, it can be as gradual as I want it to be. It can be as gradual as you want it to be. But if our desire is ardent, then it doesn't have to be as gradual. There's a story that I love from the Christian tradition, from the stories of the Desert Fathers. There was one older father, senior mentor, and there was a younger Desert Father who was taking instruction from him. And the younger man said to the older man, I hope I'm not getting off the point with this, I just love this story, so let me tell this story and then maybe backtrack. But anyway, so the younger man said, I'm following all the rules, and I'm doing everything that we're supposed to do, but is there anything more I could be doing? And as the story goes, the way I understood it, the older man put his hands up in the air like this, and he said, yes, if you desire it, you can become holy fire. And I take it to mean holy, H-O-L-Y, and also W-H-O-L-L-Y, completely fire, or holy sacred fire. So that's such a beautiful story. So it can be as gradual as we want to make it. I think neophyte devotees, put myself in this category, are probably one of the worst examples that, pushing our children to be extensions of our own, living vicariously through our children, push them to be, little Prahlad Maharajas, and sometimes it backfires. So we should help our children to become the best versions of themselves that they can be, and help them. If you love Krishna consciousness, your children will love Krishna consciousness. If you would rather be doing something else, your children will also pick up on that message. So what do you guys think? Maybe we can open this for discussion. I'm sure there are children who just get it from the beginning, like Prahlad. Of course, Prahlad heard in the womb from Narada Muni, but all of our children, if you're practicing Krishna consciousness, your child is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in the womb when you're pregnant. How beautiful is that? Just like Prahlad. So there are so many examples. What do you guys think? Yes?
I was actually thinking, I mean, I'm as a so-called senior member of this community that beyond our own children, and I have 3, there is also the young devotees who come to the temple who are like our children in a sense, and we tend to do that same thing.
We tend to.
That kind of expecting so much, and as leaders of a community, we should also we should give the example of how we can live our life happily in Krishna consciousness. So it can be an example that they want to follow, instead of, being too heavy with them and expecting more of them than maybe they can offer, and which is exactly the same thing as parents should be.
Yeah, it's a great art. I mean, Prabhupada used the term, he said you should tax your brains, how to give Krishna consciousness. So how to give Krishna consciousness to different audiences, how to make it relishable and sweet and attractive and joyful to people like Sushila and the other kids. How to make it wonderful and joyful and to all different kinds of people. We tend to think so much in the box and think only in ways, maybe old ways, but there's so many new ways that these things can be done. Sometimes people criticize, we're just watering it down by reaching out to the yoga community. One devotee in Washington, D.C., he teaches so many thousands of people to chant japa beads, and he said the people who come from the yoga community, they have much more capacity to sit and chant japa than the other people he tries to introduce to chanting. So, we tend to be in the box thinkers and, how to innovate, how to make it accessible, how to make it wonderful and magical for all kinds of people. That's a great art. Teenagers are tough customers, right? They like authenticity, and they see through all the, where was I? I was just somewhere and someone was saying, the young people, they see all the faults of the leaders, and they don't want to come to the temple if they see duplicity in the leaders. So what about your thoughts on this? Anything you all would like to share? Yes.
Yeah, I just resonated very much with me, because I see that my daughter, she grew up here, and she has always been a good girl, but I feel that it's just because you're living here doesn't mean that you are like devotee. And last year when we went to India to bring the ashes of my Prabhu there, and just before was Nityananda's appearance, and I was just praying, because she had been to India before but we didn't go. And I was just praying I would wish that she would have some kind of realization, because it was just normal, and they're going to school, and we were just 1 week in India, and it actually had such a deep impact, and she had such realizations that she it totally changed her life actually. And then she came back and she asked Manu to learn harmonium, and she went to Mangalati, and I didn't go, and she went by herself. Of course, now it's very hard if you go to high school here in Belgium. It's very you don't have any time for anything else, and I still hope this will continue. But I have seen the association here was very nice, especially from the younger devotees like Manu and everybody. Just so I think it's very nice to have this community and family that she always feels that this is her home, and she has nice relationships. So I'm just praying that this will maintain like this. But I've also seen in ISKCON with other people, I know that actually those parents who are devotional but don't push it on their kids, that even if the kids, they try out things, they go in the world, that many of them, they come back because they feel like they don't have a taste, it's not the same, and they want to come back to the devotee community.
It's true. Those seeds are very deep in their hearts, and when they're going to fructify and how they're going to fructify. I mean, there are keys, seva, trying to help them. Seva and association of devotees are such important keys, I heard something, an amazing statistic. This is from Urmila, who's an important educator in the Krishna consciousness movement. And she said that she knows a family, and they don't practice anything. They drink, they meet, they gamble, they do all these things that most devotees don't do. And they have 3 kids. And the one thing they do is they read the Krishna book to their kids at night. And 2 of their kids grew up to be devotees, of the 3. So, you just never know how the seeds are going to fructify, but prayers are very important. Never underestimate the prayers of a mother or father. And if you love it, it's going to be contagious. If you're trying to ram it down their throats. Maharaj has heard this joke that I like to tell. We have tomorrow, maybe Radhika Ramana Prabhu is coming, or maybe he's coming today. Okay, so I have a joke that my son likes. He says that every boy in the Krishna consciousness movement is, every mother in the Krishna consciousness movement is saying to her son, "You bum, why aren't you Ravi Gupta? Why aren't you Radhika Raman Prabhu?" So it's quite funny, we want our children to be exactly Radhika Raman Prabhu, who graduated from Oxford as the youngest person to ever graduate Oxford University at the age of what, Maharaj? How old was he? 22. So
He didn't graduate, he got his PhD.
He got his PhD. Okay. So
He graduated from college at age 16 or 17.
So it said, Theodore Roosevelt, one great American president, said, comparison is the thief of joy. So when we're always comparing, it steals our hearts. Try to be the best version of yourself and try to help your kids be the best version of themselves that they can be. Any other points? Yes, Prabhu?
I joined in 1980, and then it was like strict Sankirtan, Brahmachari, full morning program. If you missed one morning program, the temple president called you in the office. And so I kept up this mood for almost 30 years, and then I went like, it came too much, and now gradually I'm coming back. But I know this very strict one, that is actually what Srila Prabhupada wants from us. Bhakti Siddhanta, they all say it, but all the scriptures, 24 hours a day, not 1 minute, 100% giving. And you have to find, but I know when you get too strict, I went like a sledgehammer, and I knocked down many people around me.
And we sledgehammered so many others.
Yeah, and myself.
Ourselves and others. So we have to go back and try to find the right way for me and for others. How can they hear? How can I hear better? And try to find the finer and finer dust in our own hearts. Prabhupada had very little time. He pushed it really hard. Any other thoughts before we close? Yes, please.
I think youth is well overrated. All these problems we saw in the Bible, when you get old, you kind of like, it doesn't matter. Just for the young people.
Youth is overrated.
It gets better.
And it said youth is wasted on the young. My husband has a story that when he was in college, one of his father's friends said to him, "Son, these are the best years. These are the best years of your life." And Prabhu was going, "Really? These are the best years of my life. It's not going to get any better." And he was very stressed because of that. But it does get better when you find the path of Krishna consciousness. So thank you all so much. What's that? Questions?
Thank you so much for reading from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati about egalitarianism. Although I feel that still we can see that in a different way, like we have our own strengths that we bring. And like yourself, like we can see, Prabhupada also said that women have this devotion, and when we hear you speaking with such, gentle devotion and depth, I'm personally get really inspired, and I'm thinking, what is it that holds us women many times back from not speaking on Vyasa-san and going there and actually giving what we've received? I think we have a lot to contribute also, and he has some thoughts on.
I have to say, in the early days of ISKCON, we all used to give class, and we all used to sit and listen to each other and give class. And Prabhupada encouraged that very much. Even sometimes Prabhupada would be listening to one of his disciples, and he would quote from the disciple, which was always so funny. But I mean, many times I gave class in front of sannyasis and senior godbrothers, and I think because we're sort of rusty, we don't do it. But maybe in little groups the ladies can speak, encourage, and then I think it's important that women give class.
Well, in Radhadesh, women give more class than men. If you look on the books, David Dasi is more than Dasi.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think it's really important. So some places they still don't allow it, but Radhadesh is such a blessed place. So thank you all so much. Otherwise we get rusty. I mean, I personally have found that when I have to speak, it forces me to remember what I heard. If we don't have to speak, then sometimes it just sort of goes back into the fog. So I'm looking at the sign that says end by 8:45. Thank you all very much.
Oui, je vais parler. C'était pour savoir ce qu'il avait fait tout ça. Oui, ce sont des choses et je savais. C'est ça que je faisais. C'est ça que je trouvais très frustrant. Je savais que c'était une chose que je n'avais pas.
Krishna.
Saki,